Good morning, everybody. I thank you for being here this morning. I expected a much larger crowd, which is why there were 250 chairs rented for this occasion and added to the back. So you can tell your neighbors and friends that we miss them, for sure. I hope that all of you in this room are members of the HOA. Okay, if I take my glasses off, I'm going to ask for everybody to raise your hand if you're not. Okay. It would be nice to have this kind of a meeting for all of our board meetings on the second Monday of every month, but we wouldn't all fit in the arts and crafts room. So we try to publish the minutes and try to get all the information out to you that we can. This morning we are here because we have invited COVE representatives, Mr. Richard Casera, who is the new COO of COVE Enterprises, and we have Cindy as a regional vice president, some other guests that I'll get introduced, but I wanted to go through the parameters of the meeting first. We have a limited time here. We have until about an hour, so I'm going to call it 55 minutes now, plus minus whatever I'm going to talk. And in order to make the most of that time, we wanted to make sure that we had apparently questions that you wanted answers to. And that's why we asked for the questions in advance, so that we could kind of sort through them and pick out the most important. There were some like, why don't you remove all the stop signs on Big Cypress? And that was not something that could be answered in this meeting. There were others that had to do with the property that's being developed south of us, has nothing to do with this meeting, and several others like that. So we weeded those out, still came up with about 3 pages of questions, realized that was much more than we were going to have time for in the limited time we had. So we've edited that down as well. We are not asking for questions or follow-ups from the floor. We're going to try and make sure we have complete answers for you. And if you have things that did not get addressed or questions that did not get to the short list that we have, I encourage you to come in and see any member of the HOA during our posted hours. The beginning of the month, we will be in there every single morning, 9 to noon, and be able to take any questions that you have. A lot of the questions had to do with mowing services, and that is a separate meeting we're going to have in November. Utilities Inc., things like that. So it's not a matter of those were pertinent to this meeting. I expect everybody to be quiet and courteous, because we are looking forward to hearing what our management has to say to our questions. There are many questions, so we had to abbreviate it. We will cover that, as much of that as possible. Right now I'm going to introduce Robert Parody, who is our general manager. You all know him from our coffees and much contact with him, and ask him to introduce the rest of the board here.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for your patience waiting outside. First of all, we have Cindy King, who's our regional vice president. She's been with the company for 32 years, and basically all of us have been with COVE for about a year now. We have Alan, who's been here for 24 years. He's the general manager for Troon. And then we also have Brian Rhodes, who's our regional VP for Troon. So we're going to have Gwen moderate. That's a list of about 22 questions. We're going to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Again, if anybody does have a question outside or pertaining to specifically you, please just grab a sheet from the HOA. If it's a concern or suggestion, we'd love to hear it. But again,
we need quiet, please.
We really do like to have a paper trail, so then we can follow up on it, because without a paper trail, it's kind of he said, she said, and so that's why we like to do that. Thank you.
Okay, so Cindy, would you like to make a comment?
Sure. Good morning. Oh, very good. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your time here this morning. We do expect to answer all the questions. I do have to tell you, I'm very sorry. I just heard from Mr. Casera, and he had an emergency take him out of town this morning. Folks, I apologize. We're still going to answer your questions. So anyways, you got Robert and I, who frankly know far more about this property than anybody else, because he's here every single day.
Cindy, can you give me a summary, or give us a summary of how long he's been with the company and
Sure.
what his responsibilities are?
Sure. Richard Casera? Yes. Okay, so Richard Casera, he spent 5 years with Sun Communities as the COO, Chief Operating Officer. And Sun Communities is the same business as COVE, and as Blair was, it's 55 plus communities. Sun is much larger than Cove, and certainly much larger than Blair was. So he's very well versed in this industry and how to run these properties. Prior to that, he was, I don't know his official title, but he was in operations over resorts all around the world. So he has an extensive background in hospitality, in management, and in operations. You will get to meet him. We will do this again. I'm very sorry, and he sends his apologies as well. As for me, as Robert said, I spent 31 years with the Blair Group, and now have been with COVE for 1 year, as all of us have been. And it's been a challenging transition, I will tell you, for us especially. I hope that you all haven't had horrible transition, but for us, everything on the backside changed. So while you still see all the same smiling faces every day, our whole world changed drastically. COVE is far more technically savvy than the Blair Group was. So we have multiple new softwares that the whole team has been learning and becoming proficient with. And frankly, from that side of the business, it's run far better. It's much more efficient. We still have bumps. There always will be. Nothing's perfect, but we will work hard to make sure that we correct anything or any challenges that you may have.
Thank you, Cindy. If Alan would like to say something, I did want to just make a point that the original meeting was going to be with COVE only, COVE representatives, but because Troon is part of the management of this facilities here with the restaurant and golf course, and there were questions that were put into the list of the 43 people that sent me questions about the operations. That's why they are here today, and we appreciate both you being here. Alan, you want to say something?
Good morning. I am Alan Tenner. I started part-time in the golf shop in 1998. It was supposed to be a short-lived thing while I was going to school, but all these years later, I've stayed on. I've been with the Blair Group since then. Troon took over last year for the golf, and I worked my way into that, stayed as the same position. And in March, I took over as the general manager, overseeing the operations of not only the golf shop, the golf course, and also the food and beverage. I will say this has been a challenge for me, but I'm always up for the challenge. So if you have any questions, my office, I'm normally in the golf shop, so if you have any questions or anything that you ever need to come see me about, my door is always open. Thank you.
And Alan, you also handle the restaurant facilities
Yes.
as well? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Good morning. I'm Brian Rhodes, Regional Director of Operations for Troon Golf. I am based out of Winter Haven and basically go from Orlando down to Naples. And this is one of 15 properties I oversee. And obviously Alan here and the team have been moving right where we expected them to. It has been a rough transition, as Cindy mentioned, but we are working through everything as a challenge and an opportunity to get better.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, I'm just going to start with the questions. They are, believe it or not, still in the order I put them in. Oh my gosh. Starting out with safety and security, always a continuing concern for everyone here. The first question I got from someone was, how do I get a speed bump in front of my house? Who's going to answer that?
Yeah,
Robert?
I'll take that one. Again, we've been waiting for a couple of years to try to do something. You know, we brought Sheriff's Patrol, various things, and so it's always been a priority of the HOA and ourselves as management. Safety is number one. But finally had Cindy and COVE approve speed bumps, portable, to see how it was going to go. Obviously, want to get a little more feedback as more people are coming back into town. It's been pretty positive. We appreciate it. We have gotten a lot of emails. How do I get one in front of my house? So again, as we progress and we feel more comfortable about it, and we get as much feedback as we possibly can, we'll look at doing that. Permanent speed bumps aren't anywhere near in the future, but again, the portable ones, since they can be moved around, the signs can be moved around fairly easily. The idea is not to catch anybody. The idea is to just make it relevant that whether you're driving a golf cart or a car, vendors, employees, or obviously residents, that it's very important. Just take your foot off the gas and go the 15 miles or 20 miles. We're not looking, we understand that it's tough, but again, it's so important We just had a little incident here about 2 weeks ago, and luckily wasn't that bad, but it could, it's so easy to happen. And so that's why we're looking to do this. Appreciate the support of the residents and the HOA. And we will be looking further, but we do have a few places that we're planning on putting them. So if you do have, you can always email me. So if you want one in front of your house, at least we can take a look at that being a
Or
possibility in
drop
the
a
future.
note in the HOA office. We'll follow up with them. We see them every day.
Perfect. Yes.
I have a question, though, about the signage. I know that you had to move the signs that said to speed bump ahead off of Little Cypress over to Big Cypress. There are more signs coming, I assume.
I think they're already up.
Are they?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Cameras, something that we have all been concerned about. Couldn't we see something if we had cameras at entrances and exits in various critical areas? So, the question is,
Yeah.
are we getting cameras?
I'll
Believe
get
it or
this
not-
one.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, we are putting cameras in. Robert has already gotten that capital expense approved by the corporate office. He's worked with a vendor on placement. There will be, at this time, 48 installed throughout the community. So we think that's a positive.
I'd say it is, yes.
It's a big positive. That's a big win.
Okay. What about fencing? Fencing is also a continued issue of people trying to get into this wonderful community to fish, to steal a golf cart, whatever they want to do. We want to know, is there fencing coming up?
It is not in the immediate plan, but we will take a look at that. Folks, if somebody wants in, they're going to get in, regardless of what type of fencing you put up. Unfortunately, that's the day and time that we live in. So it is not number one on the list. I think the cameras are going to help a lot. You're going to see little signs all around, smile, you're on camera. I think that will be an excellent deterrent. And as you all, I'm sure, know, you can now purchase, what is it called, Ring, at your own home if you wanted to also see what's going on in your carport. But we will always look at fencing. At this time, though, there's not a plan to install additional.
Thank you. No census is taken every year, and that is in the statutes. We are concerned because we know that there have been issues where people lived here for some period of time, never had a background check. We didn't even know they were here as a resident. As management of a 55-plus community, why don't we take a census every 2 years?
First off, across all of the properties I've ever dealt with, we have some degree of this. People do move somebody into their home or even sell their home without going through the proper channels. So I really encourage you all to keep mindful of that and even help your neighbors be mindful of it if necessary. That anybody that's wanting to live in this community is supposed to come and do a residency application. With that said, even if we did a census, that issue will still exist.
There's still a 2-year window they can sneak in, yes, but
Yes.
that does help.
Well, and frankly, if we went door to door doing a census, unfortunately, not everybody's honest either. So I don't know that we can ever eliminate that challenge. But when we're made aware of something, Robert hops right on it. As far as the census goes, our attorney has told us we don't actually have to do the 2-year census because we pretty much do it on a daily basis. When we orient new residents, when we do the background screening, when we do closings, when we hear about someone, so we go and investigate it. So we stay on top of that every day, but we don't know everything. So if you're aware of someone that has an additional occupant, feel free to let us know, and we can make sure that they've gone through the vetting process.
Thank you, and I assume that by my coming to you and saying my next door neighbor has someone living with him and I don't think that is approved, I will be protected. You're not going to use my name?
We will not use your name. We don't do that unless it's a
Apologies to my neighbors who are here.
serious health, safety, welfare issue, then we may have to for some reason. But a typical rule violation, no. If you tell us your neighbor's got weeds, we're going to address it with the neighbor, but we're not going to tell them that you told us they had weeds.
Gotcha.
We don't do that.
Okay, going to rules and regulations, because there are many, and I know all of you have reviewed them in great detail because you should know them backwards and forwards so that you can be in compliance and know when others are not in compliance. The question is, and it's sort of general, is COVE going to enforce rules in the park?
Absolutely, of course. We're going to continue to enforce rules just as we always have. That's part of our responsibility, and I'm sure that's part of why you bought in here, because the community is maintained so meticulously. Again, we don't have all eyes everywhere all the time, so if you see something, that you feel isn't being addressed, reach out, and I'm certain Robert will address it. As far as the rules go, we are going to be working with the HOA to update the rules. Even when Blair owned the community, periodically every 5-8 years, we would update the community rules because times change, needs change, our demographic changes some. So that's a project that we're going to take on in 2024. Robert, do you want to talk about your aesthetic rides?
Yep. So with the aesthetics drive, it obviously was a tedious process with 1,602 homes. We have a great HOA and great board members that help us out with this. So we got it down now officially. It's 14 days for the first notice. And again, we do want to put a personal touch and consideration for people who are out of town, having challenges within their own life. So it's 14 days. The second letter is 7 days. Third letter is 5 days. That means we can get it all knocked out in 26 days from start to finish, which seems to be a fair amount of time for people that are out of town to find somebody if they lost somebody who's doing the landscaping or the power wash. But again, not 60 to 90 days where they get their third letter. So that's basically where we're at and been at for the last 4 to 5 months.
Or at least for the resident to reach out to us and let us know what the status is, that they're working on getting a contractor, because sometimes they can't make it within that time period. So, I mean, we want to work with the resident first, but ultimately, if they do not take care of it, we do have the right to take care of it and bill them.
And I know you do that. 26 days sounds great, but that's 26 days from each inspection, which is 3 months is still 90 days. No?
26 days total, 14, 7, 5.
Yeah.
So
From
the
the
third
first
one,
notice.
they get, on the 26th day, that's when we would have somebody come out and do their lawn.
Okay, all right.
So that's less than a month.
So all of us need to be cognizant of those snowbirds that are in our neighborhoods who haven't been here through a summer when the grass grows a foot a day. And so you need to make sure that they understand they have to have lawn care in the summertime. That's a big consideration.
And another thing just to consider, if you have the time, which would be very nice, if you are not a permanent resident, or you're not here all year round or pretty much all year round, if you could please come to the office and give us your alternative address, because a lot of times we'll send out the aesthetic letters and they get returned, so that would be extremely helpful.
Doesn't do any good to send a letter to the address here when no one's here, that's for sure. Along with aesthetics and standards, because that is always something that we want to know about, I think I wanted to touch base just a minute there, back to the rules and regs, on vetting for renters. Right. If you could elaborate on that, please.
Okay, so again, there's been recent incidences where we found people that have been here for umpteen years, and say a parent or somebody else was able to get them in 5 or 6 years ago. So what we've come up with, obviously if they come to the office, that's not happening. And generally if it's usually an owner to owner, or it's somebody not following the rules and bringing somebody in without asking, and going through the proper background and financial check. So what we're doing now is every time we see, either on Facebook, but mostly on Members iOS, we see somebody putting out a rental, especially when it's not specific, for 3 months, just reminding them of the rules and what they need to go through. Again, it's not a catch-all, but it is a distinct way to let them know, we know you're renting. So again, we and again, we really do count on the residents, not tattletaling, but telling us if somebody's not doing something, because again, it takes a village.
Renters are required to do practically the same background screening as owners, as homeowners. And a renter is qualified as staying more than a calendar month. Anything less than that is considered a guest. But at that 30-day mark, they are considered an occupant, and they have to have gone through the residency application process. If they don't, and we have to take action, it's against the homeowner. So, unfortunately, I don't think people realize that. Yes, we would evict the renter as well, but ultimate, it's the homeowner. So protect yourselves.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to aesthetics and standards, because we all know that we have our committee from the HOA, we have Robert, and they tour the community every single month. But there is also aesthetics and standards around here, and the question that was submitted, why does it seem there is such a shortage of staff for this large community? We used to have a dedicated person for the beds and grounds around the clubhouse, and that was a priority.
Yes,
Can you
correct.
address
So starting in June, and unfortunately, no more challenges with the labor market, but there still are. But aside from that, we were basically anywhere from 2 to 3 people down from June through August. Not making excuses, just facts. So now that we're fully staffed as of September 15th, Dean and his team have really gone around. We just did an $11,000 job in getting all the trees trimmed over the last week. So again, there's challenges. Things do fall through the cracks. Again, when it's 95 degrees or 100 degrees out there, 3 of these guys were busting their tails out there, trust me. And so we finally got them the support they need, and you should see that being aesthetically more pleasing.
And if I could add, we are fully staffed now, but historically, we've not had more grounds people than we have now. So, they should be able to keep up with it. But as Robert mentioned, I mean, it's a tough job out there in the heat all day long. So, sometimes we do have challenges with staffing as we did this summer, but we're going into the cooler weather, so I'm sure that we'll keep them for a while.
Good to know. Yeah, I was one of the ones that got to water the garden walk this summer. Thank God it rained on Tuesdays every day, every time. Okay, we have concerns and Robert says send me an email. I know that he's inundated with those emails sometimes, as I am, and everybody who is in any point of position that can help. Who do we appeal to with Cypress Lakes Village Management if we don't feel that we're getting a proper response or any response, or they're dragging their feet or whatever? Who do we call?
That would be me. Feel free to leave a message at the office. I'm not in this office every day. I oversee 6 communities. But Becky, everybody knows who Becky is. Becky's awesome. She will get me the message right away, and I will get back with you.
Thank you. Is there a plan to have the pools resurfaced? These pools are pretty old now, almost as old as long we've been here, Cindy. What's the plans there?
That we're looking at that. That's a future CapEx. We know it's going to have to be done, but at this point in time, to our knowledge, we aren't having any chipping, which is an indication of its time. Robert has been diligent. He's already gotten bids on those so that when the time comes, hopefully we can jump on it rather quickly.
Good. Spectrum. Should we talk about Spectrum and what the alternatives to internet capability are in the park and how we are progressing with fiber optics in here? Talk to me. Anybody?
I do know that COVE has a dedicated person at the corporate office that is analyzing all of those cable accounts across the Blair portfolio, for sure. I will tell you, though, because I think that a lot of folks get confused when Spectrum or any other provider says, hey, we'll give you a bulk deal and everybody gets a discounted rate. Well, that sounds great on the surface, but here's how it actually happens. What they then do is bill us for every single home site in here. They don't care whether you're seasonal or not, or whether you want their service or not. They bill us for every home site. That's how they give the discount. And then we would have to pass it through to every homeowner. And I'm sure you can understand, you folks that are seasonal wouldn't be real happy about that. So it doesn't always end up being a discounted amount. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What amenities does COVE plan on adding to this community because of the excessive or the increased market value rates on lot rents?
So again, we do a overall assessment that we share with the board and the rent committee, or I should say statutory committee. That basically takes 5 like-kind properties around the area within 20 to 30 minutes. We add the amenities. We take all the things in consideration. We put values on each amenity that they do have or don't have. If they have 24 hours, gate security. If they have rovers, what kind of do they have fitness classes? So we put a number on all those. We combine them, and consistently, we may not be in the high range, but we're definitely within the market rate. And again, compared to the amenities that these other 4 or 5 properties have, we're always ahead of the actual amount of amenities that we have here.
I think that you should all know, as a member of the statutory committee, and that's what he's referring to, that gets this comparison each year when we talk about rent. That is something that has typically been done forever, as far as I know, at least as long as I've been involved with it, whether it was Blair or whether it's COVE, and they do this comparison. And you can imagine, because there is no comparison. There is no other community that has the amenities that we have, that has 2 golf courses, 2 pools, that is anywhere close. So you have to do this adjustment for each thing that we offer that they don't, or they offer that we don't, which is very few. I think the difference, and Cindy and I have talked about that, is even though we have had that comparison, we fall with these market rate adjustments more to the higher end than we did under Blair, who was more in the mid-range. Is that correct, Cindy?
That's absolutely correct. We are certainly pushing top of market. It's a little bit different business model COVE has than what Blair had. So those of you who've lived here for years under Blair Group, I hope you appreciate that Mr. Young, the owner, was very sensitive to our demographic financially. And I'm not saying COVE isn't. COVE values the residents very highly, but their business model is to be top of market.
Okay. That's not only top of market on income, but in top of market on amenities, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's why they wanted to buy this community, because it is absolutely one of the top 3 in the state of Florida.
The question was, are you going to change our lot classifications, and how are owned property lots converted to lease lots going to be classified?
No, we have no intention of changing lot classifications.
Reducing them from 11? Just a thought.
Possibly. And I will say that we're probably coming up on time where we need to ride around and look at everything and just make sure nothing should change. I shouldn't just so quickly say no. But there's no intention or plan to go out and change everybody's lot classifications. And in terms of the purchase land lots, those homeowners who choose to sell their home to COVE, and then we're going to sell that as lease land. So over time, the intention is to convert all of those to lease land. They'll be classified the same way as the current leased lots. If it's a corner, it's a corner. If it's golf, it's golf.
Water, whatever.
Yeah, it'll follow the same structure.
Okay. Should we be expecting a pass-through on property taxes each year as we did this year? And I think this is more to the point of how confusing it was, because it's been handled differently in the past. So can you address that, Cindy?
Yes, it's been very confusing for all of us. COVE, again, different business model. Whatever you have been paying throughout the year, once they get the current year tax bill, which is always around November, if there's any adjustment, that adjustment will be made at that time to the residents. This year, it was higher than it should be in coming years because of the sale of the community.
And that tax base, just so you all understand that, is based on the values by the tax assessor's office of Polk County. And by law, whoever owns the property, whether it's Blair, whether it's COVE, whether it's Sun Communities, that can all be passed through to the residents who are leased property.
Correct, although there is what's called a base year.
Yes.
And what that means is whatever year we started passing the taxes through, whatever amount we had been paying, ownership is going to forever be responsible to pay that amount. So it's only the difference that gets passed through on a pro rata share.
And that is something that the statutory committee makes sure of each year when we look at the rents. So, okay, I am not sure, and I don't know that you know this answer either. The trim notice is not necessarily the same as the tax bill, and you won't know till you get the tax bill. I have no track record on that. Do you guys have any information on that?
Variances between trim and bill?
Yeah.
I could probably dig around and find it, or I would think the tax collector's office will have it as well, yeah.
Okay. The reason being that we had, in order for them to come up with their numbers that we have as our adjustments for our leases, that's based on the trim notice, which comes out in August by the tax assessor's office. It's not the actual bill. The actual bill is published November 1st or thereabouts, as she said. Is it COVE's plan to increase rent 5% every year? Those on fixed incomes are getting priced out of our community.
I can't answer that. I don't think that that's the intent. Although what has dictated it this year is, the economy. It's been crazy. I know everyone in this room has felt the effects. I've felt it in my own home, my expenses to live, as each of you are, and we do too as a community. Electricity has gone up 25% in the last year and a half. Fuel, salaries, minimum wage raised. I could go on and on. Insurance is the most volatile budget line that we have right now. It is insane what insurance costs. So I can't answer that. I know your lease says it can increase each year by CPI or 5%, whichever is greater. I will tell you, I was in many meetings with COVE determining increase amounts, and I don't believe the intent is to go 5% every year, because I've sat in on those discussions.
On the other hand, nobody in this room has a handle on what the CPI is going to be. So, all right, mowing services. I know that there is a plan for another meeting, but I'll just throw Robert this one.
Yep.
Why was the contract for ASI renewed without them having to settle complaints from homeowners whose property had been damaged by their crew?
Okay, so on the budgeting process, which we're maybe 20-25% through, we do get 3 to 5 bids, especially for bigger contracts. So if somebody stated that it was already renewed, that's not the case.
I think they meant for last year.
Oh, okay. Well, then for last year, again, as we speak about at Coffee Talk, and again, speaking to many residents that email me or, come see Becky, for the last 2 months, and, we try to do more and more each time, especially during the when it's going to be a little bit wetter during the summer. But 5 complaints on average for the last 2 months per week. So it's 5 complaints with visuals, emails are written down, on an average of 5 complaints for 1,602 homes per week. We think is pretty darn good. Now, do they make mistakes? Do things fall through the cracks? We get a list of those 5 things, or some weeks it's 9, some weeks it's 2. Last week was 3. We send them out. They have somebody who's on board that goes around, either gets a hold of the resident, sends us pictures, gets things fixed, and then they give us a report. Be more than happy to share that with anybody who wants to come by the office and show you how we do it. Becky sends it off to them. We get it. Vinny or Joe come on site. This is what happens. Do things fall through the cracks? Just like the summer, they had people, that were on property that fell through. And again, that's nobody's fault. Things happen. But again, we'll accept the responsibility because we hired them. But again, that's what we base it on. When I first got here, and this was November, floor lawn, if people remember floor lawn from about 4 years ago, in November, the last week in November, I had 24 complaints in 1 week. So again, I know people think of things fondly as time goes by, but again, we are proactive on this. If they start doing 10, 15, 20 complaints a week or every 2 weeks, and there's no follow-up, trust me, there's a 30-day out. It's time to go. And we do get other bids. It is a little bit harder, but as far as understanding the property, it does take time. And then once, as the property grows and different things, and a lot of the things that they actually go through, because I know people think they speed too fast to do this, usually it's not actually the grass cutting itself. It's usually they hit a heater, bump it off, hit a downspout, break the downspout, hit an irrigation head. And again, during the summer, they were a little slower on following up because of some challenges with their on-site staff. But again, we are working through that. And again, we do get 3 to 5 bids per year. And I'll actually be here at the Coffee Talk in November. Not to be here, we'll do the Coffee Talk like we usually do, and then they'll have a table over here to the side for any resident who wants to talk to them one-on-one.
And I think that just as a point of reference, if you can imagine mowing all this property in a week, it's in 4 days basically. It's much better this week because they're only doing half the park, and it helps out a lot, and the grass is not growing. But we can help also. We can keep the hoses out of the grass so they don't have to go around it or run over it because they didn't see it. We can make sure that there are not signs in our front yard that they have to weed whip around as opposed to mowing our front yard. We can make sure that we comply with the rules and regulations regarding fencing so that they don't have to hand do additional properties that they could have done with mowing. We have a part to play. They have a larger part to play to make our community look good. And I know that there are many of us that don't feel that has happened on an overall basis. And I think that it's self-explanatory that we have them coming in, and you're going to have some more talk with them. Is the contract up in November?
It goes year to year.
Year to year, okay.
January through December.
January to December, okay. So mark your calendars for the second Wednesday of November. If you have issues that you want to have them addressed, don't tell me that you have done this before. You have sent an email, you have called, you have gone to see Becky. Show up. Show up. That'll tell us how much interest there really is. Okay, activities office. Oh, Heather thought she was going to get off the hook since she's leaving us. Good luck to you, Heather, in your new job, and I know that you'll do very well with it. We would like, let's give her a round of applause. Sorry to see you go. We'd like to know, and I don't know if this is something Robert can answer, can we have a separate email system for community events since we don't have a television station anymore that can disperse information?
Well, the current members iOS obviously is is controlled by the residents. Mm-hmm. We have our digital copy, our paper copy, and then we also have the Campers app. We're always looking for suggestions, and it kind of go into the next question too. Is we have had challenges with the fonts and backgrounds and so forth like that with the newsletter. But again, we're working with the home office to kind of cater to our particular residents and what they like to see. So we are working on that. But as far as a separate email system, aside from members iOS, there is nothing in the plans.
Okay. If anybody knows of some community that has some type of digital or some kind of a communication system that they can do, like a television channel like we used to have, would you let us know? Because if there's something out there, we'll go after it if we can. Okay. Now we get to talk to Brian. All right, if you all had not put all the questions in for Troon, we wouldn't even have to have him be here. He could be off, and Alan could be out golfing and doing all this kind of stuff. Okay, when can we expect the grill to return to pre-COVID hours on evenings that have music? It's difficult to eat before the band begins, and in the past, music was 7 to 10.
Okay, so yes, we've heard this from a couple of our members and residents. We are in the process now of working with the bands, and we anticipate that starting January 1, we should be able to go 7 to 10 for entertainment, so you can eat beforehand. The staff is also evaluating a couple of days where we may be able to extend hours and go a little bit later into the evening for a food service. So,
before the end of the year to announce that, Brian? Maybe.
I had the conversation Friday, but as soon as we get it where we think it's ready, we will announce it. So that should be quicker than, obviously, than bands, since we don't have contracts.
We have heard a lot about staffing shortages because of weather and just basic issues here. How about you guys as far as your staff?
Staff is, right now, we're actually very well staffed compared to where we've been. Right, we've had major issues. I know I stood in front of this group probably
Excuse me, can I have whoever's phone that is get it turned off? Thank you. Go ahead.
4 or 6 months ago, I think we were in front of this group and we talked about our staffing issues in depth. They've gotten a little better. It is still a challenging market. So, I mean, someone up the street has a friend and all of a sudden they'll offer them $2 more an hour. So loyalty has been hard, but we're certainly working to make sure that we can retain our best employees.
How about the menu? Can we expand that? I mean, the kitchen has been small. That's an excuse we've heard for many years. It's still small. So what are we doing with that? What's the plan?
So we've tried to keep the same concept that we've had in years past. We have added a few new items and specials. We're also currently working on, I know we've had suggestions or a few for dietary different dishes for like, gluten-free, things like that. Tony's looking into adding some items that way. We do have a focus group. I know when we were here before, as Brian was saying, a focus group was brought up. We held our first focus group in September. We had 6 members show up our residents show up. I know Joanne Burkemper was one of them, Doc Piper, Wayne Letourneau, Madeline Fosfit, and Hunt Osmer were all a part of that group. And the purpose of that group was kind of get fresh new ideas and to find out what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. We have another one of those meetings scheduled for November 9th, so next week. And we're going to kind of catch, recap of what we did, if they've seen changes, or what we can do better. We're always looking for trying to do the best we can.
Okay, thank you. It must be time to take medicine. I keep hearing the alarms go off on the phones. All right. Cypress Grill, we continue with the same entertainment. Brian, you addressed that. What about plans for holiday meals and special brunches or dinners? And it seems like the portion sizes are not necessarily consistent. Can we have some? Is this part of the focus group, Alan, as for all these things? And Brian, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, our goal is to deliver consistent quality, food quality, and maintain excellent service. So those are our top priorities. You know, Alan and Tony and his team, they're taking steps in place to make sure that we can meet those products and our standards. If something doesn't meet your standards, obviously, I always recommend that you take a picture, document it, bring it up to Alan and Tony so we can, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Also tell your server so we have an opportunity to fix it. Because we certainly do make mistakes back there. Sometimes even the servers grab the wrong plates. If someone has, they don't want onions on it and somebody grabs the wrong salad with onions on it. So there is, always a chance of an error, but we're doing everything we can to make it. Now, as far as programming goes, yes. We certainly want to program. I know we've started several things through here, and if we can continue on that, I think the focus group, bringing those to it and bringing those to the members of the focus group, want to show what the interest of those levels are, and we can certainly accommodate the majority of requests. I'm not going to say we can accommodate all. Sometimes they don't make financial sense, or we don't have the staff to do it. But we are in the hospitality business, and we certainly want to serve you and do a great job. One of the things that we have put out there lately is a comment card on the tables. There is 2 versions of that. You can sign on online and fill it out, or a hard copy. We certainly, Alan and the team read every one of them. So please utilize those also. So if there's something that's missing, the more that we see certain things, if there's a menu item that we used to have that we don't anymore, we'll bring it back.
For sure, even if I'm the only one that wants it?
We'll try. We'll bring it through the focus group. If the whole focus group says no.
So do you need more people on the focus group, or do you prefer that we work through those 5 people? Because we got those written down. We're going to go to them if that's the case.
I expect you to go to them. One of the things we talked about is we'd originally like to get the group up to 10. Thought it would be a little bit overwhelming at first. So the idea is to have a meeting every month and then continue to add members of that and circle some of them out. So certain people, they may have been on for a year, then they go off and somebody else is able to join in.
Do you have plans to do catering in here for things like the 19-holers or golf events and stuff in the main hall?
I'm going to defer to Alan and Tony on that one.
I would say yes. I know Tony does have some things already lined up with, I believe, the veterans group. I think he has a breakfast scheduled for him with the Men's Association. He's
But that's in the grill.
in the grill. And the Men's Association, I know the MGAs holds their field days, their dinners down here. He's already got some bids for them, looking to do that. So yeah, he's definitely always
So you
open.
are interested in doing
Correct,
catering
right,
down
yes,
here?
yeah. If
Good,
anybody's
that's
interested, any of the groups want to have a lunch cater or anything, definitely stop by and see Tony. He'll definitely come up with something for you.
Is Tony in the office every day?
He's in there normally Tuesday, and then one day on Tuesday through Friday, and then normally on one day on the weekend, either Saturday or Sunday.
Okay, Cindy, do you want to throw in here?
I was just going to add that we would definitely love the opportunity to do catering. So if you have a need, please come in and see Alan and Tony.
Good. Okay. This is the last question for your group, you guys. I know you'll be happy with that. How do you select the entertainment? How do you solicit it? How do you decide who's coming?
So currently, Tony's kind of in the process of setting up the entertainment for next year. It's typically booked 6 months in advance. We try to stick with the same groups that we've had, even though I know we hear a lot of things they're not good. So we're trying to find new and exciting, new groups to come in. If anybody has any suggestions, obviously bring them to us. We'll look at them. We'll contact them. If they're not in our price structure area, we might have to charge a minimal fee to help cover the cost. But obviously we'd want to be able to have any kind
typically gets out 9-ish. Is there any way we could have a little more accommodation for let's go for a glass of wine after the show's over kind of thing at the grill? But it's typically closed.
Yeah, I would think with enough planning ahead of time that we could probably say scheduling, hey, we know this is happening down in the grill. Maybe we open for a little bit, extra hour just for drinks or something like
Okay,
that. That would
all
definitely
right.
be something we could probably plan
I think
around.
the HOA can put together a schedule of those kind of things
yeah.
that would help you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further ones from here. I think we've covered the multitude of what I had on my original list. And I would like to remind you all that this has been videotaped and will be posted online, both on a YouTube channel and I don't know, Leslie's going to put it on, or Heather. Somebody's going to put it up on Facebook. Is that where you're going to put it, Heather? We'll make sure that that information gets out to you, and I think that I've even I'll talk to Ed about putting the link on the website to see if there's a possible way we can get that through to everybody. I appreciate your all being here this morning. I appreciate you taking the time out, and you don't have to put your chairs under the table today. There's no table, so you're free to go. I thank you all for being here. Let's give these people
Thank
a
you all.
round of applause and thank them for being here. Okay. We did good. We did it.
You emphasized the different places perfectly.
I tried.